On this week's episode of Deer Dirt, I want to talk about how I created what I believe to be the perfect buck trap. I'll take you back through the history of this spot and then why I think it's going to be so productive over the years that I own this farm. Location started as something of a natural clearing. I think there were about 9 or 10 small trees in this area that when we started. I cut those down with the chainsaw. Then I had a friend, Ben Sweeney, come in here with his skid steer, and he started pushing the brush out and pushing the trees out. Between the two of us, we created about a 1/4 acre opening back in here. And I think the key to it was the fact that it was sort of an opening to begin with. So we didn't have to cut tons of trees. Like I said, 8 to 10 trees, mostly pretty small, one pretty good sized one. That makes it a lot quicker and easier to create these kind of spots without having to bring in a bulldozer and really tear things up. So that was last year, and I think it was in August. And now I'm sitting on July 11th today. So it's almost a year later. The first year, all I did was spread the cereal grain in here. I think it was fall rye. And I don't know if the deer used it or not. I didn't hunt it. It was just pretty rough, you know, with all the stumps, and there was quite a few roots still sticking up when we got done. We didn't till it up or clean it up. It was all mostly hand work. So now I'm trying to get it into shape. And this is going to be a really, really good spot. We were back here again last week, and Ben had it's called a stump auger, and it grinds or planes stumps off. So you can start it spinning and work it down through the stump and clean it up, take the roots out, kind of clear these stumps out of the way. So it's gonna be a lot easier to plant through here, a lot easier to mow through here if I get it, you know, into something like a perennial like clover that I need to keep mowed. So now I'm taking it more seriously. Today I was back and sprayed it, and probably in about a week to 10 days, I'm gonna come back again and spread brassicas and fertilizer on this spot. I may just spread the brassicas first and wait to see if they germinate and come up, and then when they do, then I'll spread the fertilizer. And that should further mellow out this soil. You know, the hardest thing about spots like this is you can't really get the big equipment in there. You can't, I mean, if you had a tiller, you might be able to work through it, but it's just so rough, and there's so many little roots and small stumps and stuff that are still there from when we pushed it out. It's better if you can, you know, let nature run its course and kind of mellow out the soil first. So the brassicas be perfect for that. Not only do they do a lot of that work naturally because of how they aerate the soil, but also it's the perfect thing to plant this time of the year. Late July in most areas, maybe early August further south. Okay, so let's talk about why this is the perfect buck trap. So that's how I created it. So behind me, there's a bedding point. And in this country where it's ridges and valleys, the deer bed high. And then they'll either go further out on the ridge where it opens up and there's crop fields to feed, or they'll drop into the valleys. In some cases, that's where the fields are. But they'll bed out on these points, little extensions of the ridge that stick out to the side. These are classic bedding areas. So there's one of those behind me. And to make that even better, this past winter, I went in with a chainsaw and cut down all the junk timber that laid around the edge of this point. And that was several hundred trees. I won't guess how many, but several hundred. You know, a lot of stuff that had no commercial value, had no wildlife value. Plus, when you cut them down, the stumps themselves sometimes will sprout, and then those that fresh growth is actually attractive and edible to the deer. So, doing what they call timber stand improvement (TSI), I made everything around this point even thicker, so it should be even more attractive as a bedding area for the deer. So right away, I've got an opening with food in it next to bedding. So that's a good combination to start with. But what makes it even better yet is there's a bigger feeding area now in front of me. So the deer are coming from behind me into this plot. It's only, gosh, it's less than 1/4 of an acre, I'm sure, but it's big enough that hopefully it gets enough sunlight and what I plant will grow. But they will come in here in the evenings. First thing that they'll do once they get on their feet is they'll hit this spot. They'll mill around in here a little bit, and then they'll move on through and they'll head toward the larger feeding areas. So there's corn, beans, sorghum, clover, plenty of other stuff to eat in that direction. And that's where they're going to be headed. So you get first crack at them. You get them as early as possible in the afternoon. So this is where they're going to be on their feet first. And they're going to move through, which makes it ideal at the end of legal shooting time to get down and get out of here without spooking anything. If you hunt closer to those feeding areas, the places where they end up, it gets harder and harder to get out at the end of legal shooting time because the deer are there. But this is more of a pass-through location. They'll mill around and then they'll move on. But the beauty of that and the size of this plot is it creates a really nice close range opportunity for a bow. That's why I like these spots. I mean, there's plenty of places where you can see deer, but I've learned the hard way that it's no fun to bow hunt out of a gun stand. So you need to create these little close range opportunities if you're focused on bow hunting. So that's what this place is all about. This spot is, in my opinion, the perfect buck trap. And I've created these in other places that I've hunted and land that I've owned. The farm that I sold in southern Iowa had probably 6 or 8 of these. And I spent a lot of time hunting those. Even in the mornings they were good. During the rut, the bucks are going to come through and check and cruise. You are right in or close, very close to a bedding area. So, automatically they want to come here and look for does to begin with. But this opening really concentrates the movement of any deer that are just generally traveling through this area. So even in the mornings during the rut, these are awesome spots. So if you have the opportunity to create one of these, I've done it poor man style, and I've talked about it a couple episodes back about how you can create these little small food plots on a budget. All you need is the starting of an opening, something that maybe out on the end of a point where the farmer stopped farming it because his equipment got too big and he can't turn around there anymore. That's a classic spot to turn into one of these perfect buck traps. You can do that sometimes even on permission. You don't even have to own the land or lease it to have that kind of control in order to create, these ideal locations. So start looking around, and if you can find spots like this, I'm telling you what, you're going to be so happy you did. What little bit of money I've spent here, hiring Ben and, paying him for his time and for his equipment, this is going to be well worth it. Not only in the hunting experiences that I have here, but also at the end, if I ever want to sell this farm, spots like this create a lot of value. Well, I appreciate you joining me. I'll see you right back here again next week for the next episode of HuntStand's Deer Dirt.